What's up everybody, it's Newbies Tubius, and today we are going to be doing a review of the Beaufighter Mk. Currently one of my two most favorite planes to fly in this game. And basically, I wanted to do the Spitfire as my first review because that was a plane that I was grinding for when I first started playing this game. But I started thinking that, you know what, the Spitfire gets all the glory. I mean, even in real life, all the way back in World War II, the pilots were always talking about the Spitfire, the general populace was talking about the Spitfire, the enemies were always talking about the Spitfire. And fast forward to today, little boys in school all the way in 2013, or perhaps grown men discussing it on a War Thunder, we're always talking about the Spitfire. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to put the Spitfire in the back burner for now, and I'm going to do my very first aircraft review on this amazing aircraft right here, the Beaufighter Mk. So I've put together a brief outline of how I'm going to review the aircraft, and I guess I'm going to do a scoring system as well for the individual categories, and hopefully this will help people understand the strengths and weaknesses of the aircraft and how best to utilize it. So first of all, we're going to go into the layout of the aircraft. As you can see, it is a twin-engine heavy fighter, as it's known, and it's also known as an attacking aircraft, a tactical strike aircraft, because in addition to an air-to-air role which it can play, it is also capable of carrying a torpedo against naval targets, as well as rockets for ground targets. And I believe its ammunition on its cannons and its machine guns can be armor piercing and strong enough to take out at least light vehicles and possibly even medium tanks. I've actually never taken out a medium tank with the guns before. I've never even bothered to try. I normally just arm it with rockets. So it is a multi-role aircraft. In reality, it excelled in the air-to-ground role, particularly against Axis shipping during World War II in the North Sea, as well as the German coast and anywhere that was basically east and northeast of England during the war. It was very well renowned for seeking out enemy shipping and destroying it, and it does have some aerial kills to its record as well. It's a pretty hardy fighter, it's a tough fighter, it can take quite a bit of damage, at least in the arcade mode. It does have a rear turret, dorsal mounted turret up at the back, that when you start upgrading it can be pretty effective for fending off enemy aircraft. If I haven't mentioned it already, it is twin-engined, so that does give you a little bit of redundancy as far as being able to take some damage and try and fly back to base, because I'm pretty sure all of us have been in a pretty sexy single-engine fighter only to have our engine shot out, and basically we just have to bail out or crash into the ocean because we can't make it back to base to repair. So having two engines is definitely helpful. So without further ado, let's get into the next segment where I break down the details of the aircraft and start going into the individual criteria, which will basically be weapons, firepower, speed, which will be a combination of its climb rate, its dive rate, as well as level flight. Maneuverability, which will have subdivisions of responsiveness to controller input, turn rate, as well as roll rate. Its overall defensive capabilities, basically if it has any turrets, which this one does. For single-engine fighters that do not have turrets, of course, that section will be NA, non-applicable or not applicable. And then basically its damage model, its ability to take damage and keep flying to the point where you still might be able to get away from the enemy and get it back to base. Alright guys, let's get into the individual criteria right now. Okay, so for the weapons review, basically this plane is just a shining star. It's a perfect example of what a heavily armed plane should be. And if it's not known for its speed, especially in a dive, the next best thing it's known for, if it isn't the best thing, in the first place is definitely its firepower. You may have seen in another video where I was basically doing a tutorial on how to, be pretty successful in booming and zooming. Some of this may seem a little bit redundant, but for those of you that are seeing this particular video first, we'll just go into it anyway. So for firepower and its weaponry, I would have to give this thing a very, very high score, and that's for two reasons. First and foremost, this plane is extremely well armed. It has basically 4 20mm cannons that are here in the nose, as well as 6 50 caliber machine guns. Now this is kind of special because a lot of British aircraft, in reality, for the machine guns, they tended to use the rifle caliber .303, which I believe translate to, in metric, I think that's 7.7mm. Pretty deadly against human targets, or animals if you're using it for hunting. Not so much when you're shooting against machinery. The Americans did it right in a certain regard by putting in a machine gun that was rated at 50 calibers. It's a pretty good chunk of lead. So when I first got this aircraft, I was very delighted to see that it did not have the British rifle caliber .303s in the wing. Instead, it had basically the 50 cals to supplement the 4 20mm. So firepower is extremely powerful in this aircraft. But I do want to mention one more thing, which is not just its weaponry, but its overall firepower. And what does that necessarily mean? Firepower doesn't necessarily mean just the machinery or the guns that it has in it. It's also your ability to maintain that firepower for a certain amount of time. Some people might say, oh, this plane has, big 37mm cannon or a 50mm cannon. And yeah, it can be pretty deadly if a plane gets hit by it. The thing is it tends to fire slow, and you don't have a lot of ammunition. This plane not only has a lot of guns on it, but it has really fast fire rate, and to make it even better, I mean, it's almost like icing on the cake. There is a ton of ammunition that this plane can hold. So you can just, as long as you keep your maintenance up on this aircraft, which means the guns can keep firing for longer without either jamming or overheating, I mean, this thing just sends, just a torrent of explosive damage, and it just keeps on going. And that's what I find awesome about this aircraft, because we've all been there where we're pouring fire into an enemy aircraft. You see that you're doing damage, but they're just not going down. You might not even be getting critical hits. With this plane, that is not the problem. I mean, you'll be getting critical hits left and right, and if the plane still isn't going down, it'll be going down in a second. And if you look at the size of the wings, I mean, I know this is probably holds fuel as well, but if you look at the thickness of the wings, you can see why it stores so much ammunition. And down here, you can see where the 20mm are. I mean, I would assume that there's probably more fuel that's being stored somewhere in this aircraft. Obviously, you've got a crew member right here, but there is probably hundreds upon hundreds of 20mm ammunition just being stored in the body of the aircraft. Sometimes when I attack and I've spent a bit of ammunition, I don't even bother to reload. I mean, if I'm going to do another B and Z attack and I'm coming out of a loop and I see another target of opportunity, if I was in a Spitfire, which of course has much smaller wings and a smaller body, yeah, I would have to reload in order to engage that second target. But with the Beaufighter, I wouldn't have to worry about that at all. So now, I haven't tried, I'm grinding the British right now. I really haven't tried any other nations, so it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint exactly what rating I should give this, because again, I haven't flown other aircraft like the Messerschmitt 410 or the 110, which I believe is similarly armed. But I have a lot of confidence that there's not going to be a lot of aircraft that can deal this much damage for as long as it does. So for right now, I'm going to have to hold the Beaufighter as the bar. And some of you may disagree with me, and if you do, please do let me know, because I know that there's, I've only started playing this game about 2 months ago. There's other players out there that are more knowledgeable than I am. So if you feel that my rating for firepower is incorrect, please let me know. And who knows, maybe I can make some revisions. But overall, this is the bar for me, so I'm going to have to give the Beaufighter a rank of 10, or a rating of 10 out of 10 for its firepower. Okay, for the next installment of performance criteria, we're going to focus on speed, and as I said in the beginning of the video, speed will not just be straight and level flight speed, it'll also be a combination of dive speed, which is actually very, very important to this particular aircraft, as well as its climb rate. So because it is a very big aircraft, it's obviously not the fastest in a straight line. If we look at some of the details here, on straight and level flight, it has a maximum speed of 328 miles per hour, but to get that speed you have to have a height of 8,528 feet. Now for those of you that are not too knowledgeable about this game, not a lot of fighting takes place probably above 5,000 feet, regardless of whatever the map is. A lot of people tend to be down low because that's where the targets are going to be at, so that's where a lot of the dogfighting is going to be at. Sometimes maps will start you off at various heights, but overall at 8,500 feet or higher, 10,000, 11,000, all the way up to maybe 15 or even higher than that, pretty much what you're going to be seeing is high-level, strategic bombers, trying to have some fun and go attack the enemy base, or maybe even attack the ground targets from so high that enemy aircraft cannot get them. So with that being said, the 328 may not be completely expected at lower altitudes that you might be cruising at, which will probably be under, for instance, 5,000 feet. So its level flight is actually pretty good because it does have two engines. However, it is a pretty stocky aircraft. It's got thick wings, so that of course creates a lot of drag. So there are other aircraft that are twin engine that have thinner profiles and are a little bit more or have less drag coefficient. So in straight and level flight, if somebody's chasing you, I mean obviously it depends on the aircraft that's chasing you, but don't think of this thing as a jet fighter. That's basically what I'm trying to say. It is very capable for a various amount of aircraft, even single engine aircraft, to catch up to you. Like for instance, I believe the Typhoon, which is another British aircraft, it's single engine, might even be able to be faster than this Beaufighter Mk. So with that being said, if you are flying straight and level and you do happen to get attacked, the best way to get away from your enemy is not to climb, but to dive. This is where the plane really excels, again due to its weight. So advice for this aircraft is if you're being attacked and you're in straight level flight, don't be close to the deck. I mean, don't be 200, 300, don't even be, I mean, you're gonna have to be way above, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 feet. I would say if you're going to use your dive, I mean, you got to be at least 3,000 or 4,000 feet up in the air, which will allow you to kind of either nose down or invert and then head to the ground, try and get some speed and use that speed that you've gained to get away. So diving performance overall is excellent with this aircraft, but just keep in mind that you need room to dive in order to maximize that speed. Overall climb rate is pretty good. It does outperform a Spitfire Mark II, for instance, on a climb rate. Spitfire Mark II will start to approach its stall speed quicker in a climb, especially if your angle is very aggressive. You're trying to climb. This is not obviously the best climbing aircraft, but it does. Overall, it's okay. So an overall rating for speed that I would give this aircraft is a 7 out of 10. Again, if you guys feel that is a little bit too cushy for this aircraft, or if you feel that it should be higher, let me know. But in my experience with this aircraft, which I have quite a bit of experience in, I would give it a 7 out of 10, only because its climb rate is not the best and neither is its level speed. The way that this thing shines is in its dive speed. Next installment is overall maneuverability of this aircraft, and maneuverability will have subdivisions being the responsiveness of this aircraft, its turn rate, as well as its roll rate. Overall, this aircraft, as far as its responsiveness is concerned, is not that great. I mean, you can you'll input the controls and the thing will turn, but it's definitely not going to be as sharp or as quick or as immediate as most single-engine fighters. Like for instance, like the Spitfire, for instance. I mean, you barely touch your mouse or you barely touch your joystick, and the thing is already going in that direction. It's almost like you just think about where you want to go in a Spitfire, and you don't even have to barely move your joystick, and it's already going there. It's like the Spitfire, which actually you can see in the background right there, kind of reads your mind. With the Beaufighter, you really do have to, at least with a joystick, you really do have to think about it and then move your arms and the plane will start flying. Now there are far worse aircraft as far as responsiveness is concerned. For instance, like medium bombers and heavy bombers and whatnot, and Catalinas and things like that. So it's not the worst. I mean, it's actually pretty good. And what I want to mention is that actually its average responsiveness can actually be a blessing in a way, because when you boom and zoom, which is what this aircraft is good at, you're diving almost 500 miles an hour. You don't want an aircraft that is super twitchy and super responsive like a Spitfire, especially if you're using a joystick. I mean, when you try to do course corrections for an enemy that's moving around, in a Spitfire you're likely to just send your rounds all over the place because your plane is just twitching all over the place because it's so sensitive. The Beaufighter is very stable, and that's the other side of the coin for responsiveness, is stability. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, is how stable the gun platform is. And if you think about it, that is what aircraft are. I mean, I envision the whole aircraft as almost like a living being, but when you look at it from a strictly mechanical point of view, everything serves the purpose of holding the guns. If you think about it, the wings, the engine, even the pilot, its main job is to make sure that guns can be in the air and you can take out the aircraft. It is a gun platform, and this particular aircraft excels as a very steady gun platform. So when you're in a dive, your plane is not like, if you want to pull up a little bit and make a course correction, if you're in a Spitfire, those very thin wings are going to catch that air and it's going to send the Spitfire like shooting off in another direction. With this particular aircraft, every single little minor adjustment you do is nice and smooth, and you can help get your nose on target and have a nice steady stream of fire going towards the enemy. So responsiveness, not that great, but it does lead to good gun stability. Overall turn rate for this aircraft, which is basically you're going in a straight line. Let's say somebody starts shooting at you, you'll roll the aircraft 90 degrees onto one of its side and you pull back on the stick and you try to do a circle, or you start trying to turn in a direction to get away from the enemy, is absolutely horrible with this aircraft, I'm sorry to say. Basically almost any aircraft can outturn the Beaufighter. I mean, I've even seen, now obviously things can be corrected in the damage or the flight models and whatnot, but I've even seen big Wellington bombers turn inside of me. I've seen B-25 Mitchells are notorious for turning inside of me, and dare I say, I've even seen Catalinas perform some crazy maneuvers where it takes me forever to finally get my nose pointed at them. So the turn rate of this aircraft is absolutely horrible, and by all means you should not get into a dogfight at all with one of these things. Use the engines, use your speed, and try and get away and gain altitude, and then come back at your enemy at a later time. Roll rate for this aircraft, surprisingly, is actually pretty decent. If you're not going too fast in a dive, the turn rate or the roll rate of this aircraft is actually pretty good. It can turn on its axis pretty well. The way that I feel is, even though the Spitfire is a much more responsive plane, I almost feel like the turn rate, or I keep saying that, I apologize, the roll rate of this aircraft may even be the same as a Spitfire. So that is a tribute to this plane. The credit to this plane is its roll rate, and that can actually help you get on target when you're in a dive. However, if you are going very fast, I guess it's due to the air pressure over the wings, it can be very difficult to do a roll. So make sure that if you do want to do a roll and you want it to be effective, don't be going probably over 400 miles an hour. So for an overall maneuverability rating of this aircraft, with responsiveness, turn rate, and roll rate, I would have to give this particular airplane, I would say, a 4.5, maybe even a 5 out of 10. But of course, for the sake of this video, I have to settle on a number. So I'll probably give it a 4.5. Alright everyone, I was going to do defense as the next category, but I decided that I should have put that in firepower or weaponry. I apologize. So to make this video more quicker and concise, I'm going to delete the defense category and go to the very last category, which is a damage model, which is also something that I'm pretty excited to talk about for this Beaufighter. So in the previous segment, which was maneuverability and speed, maneuverability being kind of lackluster or not very good for this aircraft, and speed being kind of average when you take into account its climb rate and its level of flight. One of the shining points of this aircraft is its ability to receive damage and take that damage and keep being operational. First thing I want to say, like I mentioned earlier, is that this thing has 2 engines. So if one engine gets shot out, you still have another one to rely on. The second thing that I want to mention is that this aircraft is pretty hardy. I like to consider it kind of like a flying tank. In its current damage model, it can actually take quite a bit of damage, even from cannon fire, and keep on going. Now, I want to mention another thing, so that way, if you guys are flying this aircraft, because I might have said something that encouraged you to fly it, and all of a sudden you get hit and your wing flies off or your tail flies off, and that way, you're not going to be all surprised and be like, oh, Nubius Tubius said that this plane was a flying tank and it can do whatever, it's invincible. I do want to say that it also depends on where you get hit on this aircraft, just like any aircraft, and what you get hit with. I've had times where there was, I think it was like a P-39 Aerocobra, which is notorious for, hunting big aircraft and getting a couple of shots with this big 39mm cannon. Right underneath the turret right here, I was running from a P-39 and I thought I was going to make it, and he managed to put a couple, either 1 or 2 cannon rounds right in this section, right here, and guess what? Everything from here back exploded and fell off. So this aircraft can take a lot of damage, but it also depends on where you get hit. If you get hit in the wing roots, which is basically here, for instance, I don't know how much damage needs to be done, but you could have a whole entire wing just severed off. But with all factors being equal, the Beaufighter is a very, very hardy aircraft and can take a lot of damage. There's been numerous times where I've tried to do a B and Z attack and maybe I run into the enemy. Some of them will be chasing me all the way to the edge of the map, and I might be receiving fire and getting hit 30 or 40% of the time that I've been running. My plane is riddled with bullets, but my engines are still going. My control surfaces, for the most part, are still going, and I'm still in the air. So this plane can take quite a bit of damage, but just remember, it is not invincible. And sometimes there are lucky hits. In addition to, like I said, getting hit in the right area. For instance, you could get hit in one of your control surfaces, which are, for instance, these flaps here, these ailerons here in the back. If you lose one of these, you lose the ability for your plane to roll, which means you might not be able to turn in a certain direction. And then if you get hit here on some of the tail surfaces, if you get here in the rudder, you won't be able to yaw left and right. And then if you get hit here, and one of these things falls off, one of these ailerons in the back gets hit, you won't be able to change elevation. So sometimes lucky hits will completely negate the damage ability of an aircraft, and you'll be stuck flying in a certain direction, and the guy's either going to just leave you alone to fly off into the distance so you can bail out, or he's just going to keep pursuing you. So but overall, this aircraft can take quite a bit of damage, more than most fighters, twin engine fighters. And overall, I'm very, very happy with its ability to take this damage, because it definitely can't turn and it definitely can't fly too fast in a straight line. So it is a credit to the design, and it is something the Beaufighter pilots can kind of take advantage of, since they can't, again, rely on turn rate. So for the overall damage model, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Alright guys, trying to showcase all of the Beaufighter's features that I explained earlier, and we're playing a domination game, and I just ran into a flight of heavy aircraft, so this should be a good, look at the H6K, Blenheim, Beaufort, and a PBY. What more could one ask for? It's basically Christmas. Unfortunately, I can't attack all of them at the same time, so I'll probably go for the Beaufort first, because he's closer, and he's probably not as well armed. So let's see what we can do. Critical hit. Got him. Aircraft destroyed. Nice and quick. And not one of those cheap pilot kills either. That was a legitimate aircraft kill. So now his buddies have seen that, and now they see me turning towards them. And I bet they are pooping in their pants right now. That H6K is heading right towards me. I might as well go for him, I guess. H6Ks are even tougher to shoot down. Let's see what we can do. See all those beautiful flashes on that plane? Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit underneath him and slow down a little bit so his rear gunner doesn't get me. This is gonna be a little bit... Oh shit! Okay. See, now I'm taking hits. Alright, I'm gonna go over to the Blenheim instead. Where is that guy? Where is yeah, he's at a more difficult angle. So I'm gonna go over to the Blenheim. Get a little bit of elevation so that I can get a better profile on his wings. And somebody's attacking me. Oh, it's the H6K. Never mind. Okay, he's rising in elevation, so it's more difficult for me to see him. To see the whole entire body of his aircraft. Now he's shooting at me. So I've already taken hits, as you can hear. I'm going to drop down a little bit, try and get some more speed, and then pop back up. Lots of good hits on that guy. He's dropping down. Aircraft destroyed. Alright. Taking a little bit of damage to my fuselage. And one of my... I just heard the other guy pass over me. Crap, where did that H6K go? He might be in the sun. I don't know where he is. He may have been shot down, I don't know. Or he could have dropped down to the deck after he saw what happened to his two buddies. Well, at least that's a pretty good indication of the firepower that this thing has, because if you guys don't know already, those twin engine, or the 4-engine aircraft and the twin engine aircraft can take a lot of damage. I'm not convinced that that H6K is gone. That's not him over there, I don't believe. I gotta remember the names of these people. Alright, let's go after this H6K. It might be him. I can't remember if it was Dirty Mike. I'll have to check it out in the footage of the game when I edit it. Okay, I'm gonna slow down. Let's see if I can get some really good dorsal hits on this guy. Alright, I got a lot of good hits on him. I can hear his plane exploding in different parts, I believe. But I'm going to make sure I try and finish the job. Yep, got him. There he goes. There he goes. He's all in pieces. Beaufighter, everybody. Beaufighter. Soon to be known as the Beaufighter. Alright. So I've taken out 3 very well defended, very thick-skinned, very tough aircraft. So that is a testament right now to the firepower of this thing. It's not all about one big cannon that fires really slow and has a short amount of ammunition. It's about having, for me personally, it's about having a lot of decently sized cannons firing very fast and having a ton of ammunition to spit out. And if this particular clip does not display the firepower of the Beaufighter, taking out 3 heavy aircraft like that, I don't know what would. Okay guys, so previously you saw how this the firepower of the Beaufighter was displayed against 3 heavy aircraft. What I'm trying to achieve right now is to see what it does against more single-engine aircraft, which I'm assuming will be quite devastating if I ever manage to get some hits. But also I want to showcase how, especially when in a dive and going very fast, that when you're trying to mix in with a bunch of single-engine fighters that are twisting and turning, the Beaufighter can't really track those targets, and it's very difficult for it to stay. It's very difficult for it to stay on those targets, and they just turn too tight, and everything just goes to crap. So let's see what happens when I'm going after this BF 109. He's already turning, so when you're in a Beaufighter, you really got to try and predict where the enemy is going to go. Typically in aerial combat, you need to do, it's better to do everything early, but when you're in a Beaufighter, you got to do it even more early. So see how he's going left and right, and I'm doing full left rudder and doing everything I can. And okay, I might be able to actually get him. A little bit of right rudder, and I missed. So I'm going to use my speed to translate into vertical distance, altitude basically, and climb away from the battle. Now there's a P-40 over here that's turning. I'm going to loop down on him, complete my loop, and then go after him. And let's see if I miss him as well. So this can either go one of 2 ways. Alright, so we're... Alright, yeah, as you can see, there's a tangle of aircraft. He's not moving in very aggressive turning circles, so I might be able to get him. Oh, he just died. Nice. Alright, I'm going to go use my speed, go back up into the vertical. There's a Spitfire over here. Dive down on him. Spitfires are really slippery targets. Very maneuverable. But this guy seems to be chilling. He wants to get into the battle, so he's going to go in a straight line to get in there as fast as possible. Aircraft destroyed. And that's what happens when a Beaufighter hits a single-engine aircraft, especially from the top, because he's not paying attention. Makes very quick work of him. Now, if the Beaufighter was in a turning fight on a horizontal plane, the Spitfire would practically tear the Beaufighter apart. So obviously you can see where the differences are. I'm going to reload, look for some other targets of opportunity. There's a P-36 right here. 20 seconds to reload. I'm going to gain some more altitude. There's no need for me to really do a loop. Actually, as you can see, the speed, like I said, it's just kind of average for the Beaufighter. If I was to try and do a loop at this speed at 160 miles per hour, I'd probably stall out in the middle of my loop and basically just fall back down to earth until I have enough speed to continue going. So let's see. Let's go after something more nimble. And I'm actually going to do something that's really against my nature. I'm going to throw myself into the thick of the enemy, and maybe let's not try to go vertical. We'll try and go in a flat line and see if I can actually take some damage as well. Okay. So, again, the roll rate is pretty good. As you can see, for a big plane, this thing rolled pretty easy. Okay, he's going in a relatively straight line. I don't believe that he's paying... Okay, he's paying attention to the guy in front of him. Okay, he's turning, and... Oh, wait. Whoa! Wow! Was not expecting that. Holy crap. I guess his turn rate just wasn't tight enough, and... I managed to get him right as he crossed over my nose. That's another way to get people, is crossing when they cross right in front of your nose. Alright, is there somebody behind me? Or below me? Oh, there's a Hurricane down here. Hurricanes are pretty fragile aircraft. despite what they were like in the Battle of Britain, being able to apparently soak up some damage. Okay, roll is good. Okay, now I'm being attacked by somebody. Now it's time to showcase the speed. 430 miles an hour in a dive. Another aircraft just hit me. I was a P-39, and 450 miles an hour. Rear gunner is engaging the target. It's a Hurricane, and Hurricanes are completely slow compared. Oh wait, those are the Beaufighter coming down on me. Oh shoot. All right, but he wasn't probably coming down from a very big height. So as you can see, he's peeling off right there. Okay. That's good. Woo! All right, managed to escape. Just a few holes in my aircraft. So there is a perfect example of taking some minor hits and using the dive speed of the Beaufighter to get away. Flatline speed is actually pretty decent because I did get a boost. I'm not even using war emergency power. I'm just at 100% power, and I'm actually picking up speed. As you can see, 317, 318. Most single-engine fighters at this altitude will struggle to do that speed. They're typically going to be in the high 200s. Okay, let's climb and get some altitude. Alright, you know what? We've got 2 kills. And I've been showcasing, I keep using that word, I keep showcasing the strengths of the Beaufighter. Let's see if we can get into a turning dogfight at relatively low altitude, and we can see some of the weaknesses of the Beaufighter. So I'm not too high. I'm at just under 5,000 feet. There's a BF-109, an A-20, and a BF-110. The BF-109 probably being the most maneuverable out of the 3. And let's see if we can get into a dogfight, and let's see if I can take some damage. I don't want to get shot down, but I do want to get hit, which is very unnatural for me to say. I guess it's unnatural for anybody to say. Yep, this will be good. There's a lot of enemies in there. There's even a Spitfire. King of maneuverability right there, the Spitfire. Alright, he's after a buddy of mine. Or a teammate. As you can see, I'm heading right into the thick of it. This is perfect. I'm going to ignore that Beaufighter and try and predict where this Spit... Oh, shoot. Alright. BF-109. There's a Typhoon. Got some hits on the Typhoon. Enemy kill assist. Let's go for that P-36 over here. Is anybody on my tail? My rear gunner is not shooting at anybody. Oh, P-36 is heading right towards me. Woo! Oh, shit! Damn it. I lost my ability to control my elevation. I'm going down. So that's what I was saying. This plane can take quite a bit of damage, but if it gets hit in the right area, you're pretty much just as good as dead. So I'm going to bail out.